Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Where's My Sage, a taste of the universe. Let me move Kristie back where she belongs. I'm Mike, and I'm here with my co-host, Kristie London. And how are you this evening, Kristie? How are things going?
Well, isn't that a loaded question?
Yeah. Always loaded, always loaded.
Let's start with you. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. We're trying some things out tonight, folks, as you're coming in. Yes, we have a new intro. We've got some really cool new news, and I'm trying something right now. Hi, Colette. Hi, Rachel. And oh, wow, this is really working out pretty good.
He's got even more on his plate now, but it's really awesome.
Yes. So the new news tonight. We started live.
Let's let people get on first.
All right, get a few people on. It's working though.
It's working. He's like, we gotta take advantage of it while it's working. I might lose it.
It's working.
All right, go ahead, tell them. But I don't
No. We got a couple more coming in. We got a couple more folks coming in. Make sure my green screen's back where it belongs.
So I'll tell you about my week, though, because I'm sure people will notice, that I have a different background. And please ignore this. This was long before I moved into the house. So, yeah, my office is off limits to me. Actually, the whole house is off limits to me because I am actually quarantining because I do have COVID. Go figure. Now, the best part about that. 2020 is like destined to break me. It's just hammering at me hard. I'm like, what the hell? So yeah. So, who would have thought? And not in a million years, right? So here I am stuck in my bedroom and it's been quite the ordeal. But in true Kristie fashion, ask me how I found out. Because a year hasn't been enough.
I know why.
Ask me how I found out. So I just had like simple cold symptoms, right? And I was going down into my basement and I was getting ready to make cookie dough to do cutout cookies with my girls. And I slipped and fell on my basement stairs. So I was in a lot of pain. So, because in true Kristie fashion, we can't ever do anything the easy way, right, Mom? I saw you on there. So, so the next day when I was still in a lot of pain and I thought, my shoulder was done and I totally jammed my left hand, which is not good because I'm a lefty. And, this step where my back made contact, the spot where my back made contact with the actual basement step, that was just a joy. So, called the doctor and she says, well, you have this and this symptom. We have to send you for a COVID test before we can even consider x-rays. And I was like, all right, great. Didn't my pop is a positive? I couldn't believe it. So here I am. So hopefully in a couple more days, I will be off of my quarantine for Christmas and we will be good to go. And I'm going to do the responsible thing and go get another test to make sure that I'm done with the COVID thing. So yeah, so that's been my week. So it's here we are. I can't stare at this wallpaper much longer. I'm not gonna lie. Although it's been nice having the bed to myself again. And I told my husband it's kind of like when he goes on deployment. It's great. He's gone for weeks at a time. Or at least when he used to be in the military. Yeah, he didn't like that very much. But, he also likes to be in his own room without having to share a bed either. So that's it where it's all good. Right? So here I am. Yeah. So, yeah. Otherwise,
other news.
Yes, let's tell them now. Let's tell them. So we just found this out like 2 hours ago, right?
Yes.
2-3 hours ago.
We are now on Cutting Edge Network TV on Roku. So if you've got a smart TV, look up Cutting Edge TV, and you will now find us live Tuesday nights on there. And I think our backup broadcast will be there as well. So that's what I was checking on a minute ago. That's why I was kind of out of the way there. Nobody saw me is checking to see if we're there. So now with one of the 3 TVs in this room, I can take a look and see when we're live and watch us on the big screen.
You put any more TVs in front of you, you're going to be going crazy. You're like,
yeah, really have a headache. So it's been a crazy week. We a couple of weeks. Happy to everybody back tonight. Please like, share, subscribe, like I said, if you're got a smart TV and you're laying in bed, you can put the computer away. You can watch us that way. The only thing you can't do is ask questions from the TV. So now we're official TV channel. We're now Facebook and YouTube. Yes. We're on almost every one of your favorite podcast locations. Everything from Spreaker to Spotify to iTunes to iHeart to Amazon Play. You can find us there now. So halfway through. We are not doing a reading show tonight. We've got some guests, and I'll let Kristie interview them because I can talk all night long tonight for some reason. Probably that energy drink I had 2 hours ago. Zip. Whoop, okay.
She doesn't have an energy drink. What is wrong with her?
Didn't know it was going to happen.
Maybe it's a good thing. You have to be able to multitask. Uh-oh. You have that concerned look on your face. Did we lose something?
No, I'm just looking at comments and everything. See who's here, who's joined us.
You sure you're good? Sure.
Yep, we're good. Yep.
So, I've been fighting my own demons this week, and it's probably a good thing that we have these guests coming on tonight because these are some pretty cool guys. I, for one, met them, at the Rochester Parafest last year. I think you knew them a little longer, or you knew of them a little longer than I have, but they are very interesting and very down to earth, especially for what they do. And actually, they are the first guests. Not like I was trying to imply like they have to be any certain weird special way because I'm a psychic and medium, and trust me, people, I get it. It's not what I meant. And they know I love them. So, but it's really cool because we haven't had any guests on yet to talk about this particular topic with what they do. So I'm really excited. They have a lot to say, and I've actually been able to enlist their help a little bit as well already myself professionally. So without further ado, let's introduce duo Daemonologie. Carl Johnson and James Annitto.
There we go.
To the show. Hi, guys. Usually Mike's got you guys popping up long before I'm even able to introduce you. This was pretty good. Now it was a delay. Eventually we'll balance it out and we'll get you.
I'm getting the time down.
And we of course didn't know my prayers for the COVID thing. Holy moly, huh?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I
have no idea. No idea
we
how
never do anything easy.
No.
And Mike, I feel you on the energy drink thing. I just drank some soda. I don't drink and just ate some chocolate, so my endorphins are going.
There you go. Hey, you did it the right way.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. We're really excited to have you both.
Thank you for having us.
So we've been quickly introduced to more or less, duo Daemonologie. As the name implies, we are demonologists. So you don't get that every week.
Whoa, that energy drink is really kicking in.
You feel it's getting now. Yeah.
I
don't know if you remember Zoolander, the movie.
Yeah.
Ben Stiller. Remember, he would go like the models, male models, because we're good looking. Demonologists.
You guys are awesome.
But we're very serious people, so it's a very, very grim, serious topic. So,
oh my God. You two are like two peas in a pod. How in the world? How did you meet? Like, how did this happen? Because you're.
Yeah, you wouldn't remember the Patty Duke show because you guys are too young. Because
I used to watch the reruns.
Identical cousins, and you'll find they laugh alike, they look alike, and times they even talk alike. You can lose your mind.
Carl, remember this is their first time on television tonight. We don't want to kill their viewership.
We're not even. We don't want to kill their viewership. We're not even on the air yet. We're not live yet. We can't say anything,
Oh my God. That's okay. I needed the laughs tonight, really.
Well, they're just starting, I think.
That's awesome. Okay, so serious question though, because you guys spelled Daemonologie different. I've never seen it. So DAEM and some other letters. So how do you
other letters.
But sure, like seriously, what's up with the name? The spelling?
There, you can read it off there. There's the website.
No, I knew how to spell it. I'm not Mike. Come on.
Do we look serious or what? We look positively grim.
You do. You're very professional.
Thank
You have
you.
a very personable side, which is a great balance.
Well, Daemonologie, D-A-E-M, Dame, O-N-O-L-G-I-E. So that is in the parlance of King James. We're talking about early 17th century, late 16th century. That is how it was spelled, and that was when actually modern demonology had its origins, rooted in that time. So, and King James, was it he himself who authored the treatise on demonology?
Yes.
Yeah, he sanctioned it, I know. And that's how it was spelled then. So we reflect the origins. And our mission with Duo Demonology is to bring demonology into the 21st century, strip it of the cobwebs of the Middle Ages and legitimize it as a science, as a scientific study and pursuit. So, the old in the name, the new in how we present ourselves, and we delve into psychology, the psychological aspects, more than we do the parapsychology, I think, but both come into play. So it's multifaceted and a fascinating subject, really. So that's why we get demonology, which, spell check tears that up all the time and autocorrect. And you have to write it 3 times just to send a message.
Right.
Autocorrect. So.
But it also does bring as well, it was in some parlance to duo demonology than duo demonology. I think the duo demonology has a bit of a role, a little bit of a role to it.
Duo demonology. Yeah, maybe they don't. You want to know about the duo? What that means?
What does that mean?
It means 2.
Yeah. A duo.
But we are made up of a third individual.
From the Vulgate Latin for 2, duo.
But we are, of course, accompanied by a third person as well.
So we're kind of a trio.
We are a trio, but we are the demonologists.
We have an invisible friend here.
Yes.
Hey, I have a lot of invisible friends.
Keep us clear, Bob.
What was it called? Alicia Marco Carlson. She's our manager, but she's also a historian. She's actually a president of the Johnson Historical Society here in Rhode Island. So she helps us out in many ways. So we are made up of a third individual as well, but we are driving forces of
we could spend the first 10 minutes. Then she's on. We could spend the first 10 minutes just listing her credentials. Really?
Well, so you just decided not to invite her to be on the show, or what's it?
Home front.
She does.
And one thing making dinner.
And
no, I feel bad.
We are going to see her tomorrow. I'm sorry. In person. But she could.
Hey, Lisa, if you want to be on the show, we'll send you an invite. Forget that.
It's very easy for us to do.
She's charming and absolutely engaged, fascinating guest. She has so much.
Yeah.
And
that's so cool.
She's modest, but we don't have to be modest about her.
Yeah, and she is the backbone. Carl and I have known each other for 10 years, but
wow,
Carl and I, due to life, kind of withered away. It was not because of any hatred or anything. It was just
no division or something. Yeah. It's just like James moved one place, I'm in another, and
right.
Separate. But at least generated our friendship again. She and Carl run a group called Panorama Paranormal. And basically, she was the introduction again. So regardless, even though Carl and I are the duo, if it wasn't for Elise, it probably wouldn't come to fruition.
And she continues, of course, to contribute her organizational skills to our unit, our research unit.
That's great. Well, it's so hard to be the backbone, so I feel for her. I'm waiting for it, Mike. Come on, let me have it.
Every good duo, there's a woman.
I'm teasing as I sit here in front of my makeshift computer stand, and he's got like 18 million, monitors and everything that he's working right now. Well, we truly know who the backbone is here. Trust me.
Most of the time, but
who gets the broadcast?
Oh, all right. Listen,
sit in the Amazon jungle and talk to us. Daylight.
Yeah. No, this is Florida. This is from a Bigfoot hunt I did with a buddy of mine from Naked and Afraid. There, Aaron Phillips and I went out and kayaked in the middle of nowhere and nobody around. And interesting night.
I bet you found signs of it. If not,
we found some interesting things, stuff that just didn't make sense, and had bears come into camp that shouldn't come in where we were in the swamp, and
Right.
it was a cool night. So how did you guys meet?
Well, I was involved in a full-blown demonic case, and this was in Orange, Massachusetts, near the Vermont border. And one of the founders of that team, Andre Correa, was acquainted with James, and James had met my brother at, I believe you were manager of the electronics department in Walmart. And so he recognized Keith from our stint on Ghost Hunters on the Sci-Fi Channel. And they started talking shop. My brother was into buying some paranormal detecting equipment, was asking advice on that. So James knew about me as well as my twin brother, Keith. And then he found that we were involved in this case. It had rumblings about what kind of case it was. And then word got out among the paranormal community that it was a demonic situation. And so it was shortly after that that James and I met, and we hooked up, and he became the first tech manager of our team at the time, Beyond the Veil Paranormal. So let me shut this off now. I can't be important. I'm shutting my phone off altogether, but it's not going to be an emergency. Maybe my sister or something. But that's how James and I met, and became our tech manager. And we went on some interesting situations, and I believe that went on for about 2 years, and then we had to relocate. The team just didn't have the gravity to hold it together because 2 members move away, and
Right.
plans get canceled and all that. So it just kind of dissipated. But I would see James at lectures and the paranormal symposiums, the conferences, and we started to meet each other at Ocean State Paracon, which was given annually, not this year, of course, but it was given annually in Harrisville, Rhode Island, which is the same town in which transpired that situation that was made into a movie 40 years after the actual events, called The Conjuring. That's why they had it in that town of Harrisville, Rhode Island. So James and I would confer and see each other. So we got to get together. Well, we did. We got together in a big way. James invited me to be his special guest speaker at Massachusetts Paracon in September of 2019. And we seemed to be such a hit. I think we were. The audience was very receptive to us. They don't expect demon guys to be funny, for one thing. And, we were. We answered some very cogent questions from the audience too. These guys are for real, they do this stuff. And that was the birth, in a nutshell, of Duo Daemonologie. Then James came up with this brainchild. Let's keep doing this, and let's call it Duo Daemonologie. I like it, because that's how H.P. Lovecraft would spell demon, like Daemon, D-A-E-M-O-N. So okay, this strikes a resonant chord. And that's how we came to be. And here we are now.
Yes.
Very cool. So, James, tell us a little bit about your background then. What about your own life? How did you get started? How did you find yourself in this before you even met? So what's your personal backstory on this?
Well, I think where Duo Daemonologie is now is a big construct to where I've gotten, how I've developed in this field, how I've developed to the point of working with Carl full time with Duo Daemonologie. And basically, my life started off in interest in theology, anthropology, science, Darwinism, certain things within that spectrum of everyday life. And the reason was because of my disdain for God. I had a very traumatic young childhood, and I really, a lot of people blame their higher power, and instead of blaming themselves or blaming other situations, usually we should blame ourselves. But at that point, I was a child. It wasn't my fault. And the people that raised me were very church-going individuals, my grandparents. So, hearing how God is good, and, that, God give everything for you. Of course, in the Old Testament, he really wasn't, the nicest God. But in the same
token, nicer gods than you would. That's what you're saying.
But in the same token, though, is like I heard all these things, and I went through such a traumatic childhood. I said, okay, well, basically screw God, and I was very interested in Darwinism. I was heavy into macroevolution when I was a kid. I would study so much about human history, mythology. I love ancient Greece. I love ancient Egyptian folklores. And so basically, a concept came to my head from watching Scooby-Doo and Most Haunted and Scariest Places on Earth, and then, of course, Ghost Hunters, which Keith and Carl were on the first 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. But it led me to the point where, okay, people do this. You know, I knew of the Hans Holzes, the Harry Prices, and the Warrens, of course, because I was very influenced in that literature. And, of course, the shows that had occurred. That weren't, of course, not like Ghost Adventures and all these other programs. But at that same time, I was like, okay, my answer to figure out if God existed, because that was my whole point. You know, I was not atheist, I was agnostic, and so to say. I thought it could be a possibility, but there was so much that pointed towards it wasn't possible. So for me to kind of come up with a better conclusion, and I thought, of course, being young and brash and naive, I was thinking that I could solve God, which many theologians and many scientists haven't been able to disprove God at all. And it's been something that's been talked about for centuries, thousands of years within human civilization. So I thought if I got into the paranormal and figured out what ghosts and angels and demons and spirits and poltergeists and all these things within the paranormal spectrum, the preternatural phenomena, that I could come closer to understanding God. And it actually, I kind of did. I still can't tell you what God is. I still can't tell you what a spirit is. I can't tell you, beside, of course, the characteristics of what literature, what I've experienced, and matching to what some of these things have said by other people, still haven't come up with a clear answer at all. But yeah, basically, meeting Carl 10 years ago was a culmination of all those things, you know, my drive for wanting to understand God. And now I have a great relationship with what people would call God. And, you know, I was ordained a deacon with the Catholic Church. You know, before that, I was a Church of Christ ordained minister. And, you know, I've very well versed myself in theology and those other spectrums because it became a love of mine, you know, and I really give Scooby-Doo the credence for that. I've tried, everybody laughs. Oh,
they're laughing.
Yeah,
I'm laughing.
I watch Scooby-Doo.
Sure, if you watch Scooby-Doo and you watch what we do, I'm out there.
Yeah, but he does and he does.
There you go.
Scooby-Doo, and you watch what we do.
I don't know what's in that chocolate, but I want some.
Oh yeah, they're good. There's only a few left here.
But you'll see what we do. You know, we try to take a lot of the standpoint of
our sustenance.
What those teenagers did. We don't go in there expecting it to be real. And especially with Carl and I do now. And that's taken a lot from our backgrounds, and specifically mine too, but we don't jump to those conclusions. We try to eliminate the possible before we jump to the impossible or the unknowable. So it has a lot of credence.
That's great. And Carl, what about you? How did you get started? What was it an interest for you? Was this something in your life? How were you pulled into this way of things?
Oh, same as him. Yeah. No, I have my unique story, but some similarities, I'm sure. I was raised in a haunted household. I mean, it was, I'm not saying it was like Amityville Horror and going to drive us out. Most days were business as usual with our family, but there were some interesting things that occurred. And it started when we were like just about toddlers. I think my brother and I were like 5.5 years old, and my brother and I still remember this. My mother went to get a drink of water from the sink spigot in the kitchen, and my brother has written about this. He calls it the thirsty ghost. My mother went to take a glass of water. All of a sudden we heard, and the glass was empty. My sister and I were was over at the right side of the room in the high chair, and my dad was there, mom was there, and my twin brother and I, we saw that. And that was pretty much the start of strange things appearing and disappearing throughout the house. That was just a dramatic example of it.
Wow.
And then by the time I was 14, my sister, she's 3 years younger than I, and my brother, we started to play on that intriguing parlor game, the Ouija board, spirit board, and asked for a sign one time. I remember early on in our Ouija play, I said, give us a sign. And the planchette spelled out stellar. So my sister and I went to the top of the cellar stairs, and we waited for about 20 minutes, just about to give up. All of a sudden we heard, there was a wood partition at the side of the stairwell, and we heard raps on it. 3 raps. Another minute later, 3 raps again. Success! So we became very intrigued with our spirit board play.
Wow.
I mean, it really was a haunted house. And then it was a couple of years later, I started to see the apparition of a woman down in the basement. Oh, I mean, we had already heard, all my family heard things moving around down there, and we used basically the basement for storage. Chairs would be turned upside down, relocated, the dehumidifier on the other side of the room, things that shouldn't be happened.
Right.
And, by the time I was 16, I had moved my bedroom down there to have my own space. And I'm there for, been there a couple of weeks, and I started to hear the noises again. It was, ooh, I'm down here and it's happening. Things are moving about. And one time, well, it happened several times, but to start with, I got out of the bed and said, I got to see what's happening here. The noise stopped when I stood up. I wasn't asleep, and nowhere close to it. And the form of a woman dressed in old-fashioned clothing, like at a turn of the 20th century like that. She had no color about her, not in that light anyway. It was dim light, but you could see in the room. She walked across that room. Now, my first thought for the first half a second was, we have company. I don't know who's here. But what was most spooky about this apparition was that it looked like a woman. She moved across the floor making no sound. She was moving, like a walk, but no sound. And she walked right up to me and by me. And I had about 4 seconds to observe the spirit. That's a long time to see a ghost. Mm-hmm. But I had the chance to realize I was seeing a ghost. I was seeing a spirit. And then she just walked into the shadows and was gone. Mm-hmm. Happened again. And it happened again. And one time I turned around, she was next to my bed, and I said, hello. Then I realized who I was looking at. And she had that static stare that spirits will have. She's looking right at me. I could even see her hair pulled up and, some disheveled hair and, the cut of her dress. And then she just vanished from the bottom up. I remember sitting on my elbow and leaning on my elbow and said, how am I ever going to get anybody to believe this? So things like that were happening. One night the noises downstairs in this bed. You think I would have moved out of there. I tried to get up and move upstairs. One night, so many things were moving around in that basement. I said, I can't stay here. I got to go up to the couch. Well, it only got worse from there because I heard these reverberating thumps it sounded like on the roof of the house. Boom, boom, boom. And it's getting louder and all that, and woke other people up in the house. And the next day I went outside and I thought there has to be some branch nothing could have caused that. Just, I could spend the whole show talking about things that happened in that house. So that forced my interest. I say, there's something to it. This is real, this force. And then I happened to attend a lecture given at Rhode Island College in Providence. And what was this? This was April 1972, before you guys would thought of it. And the people presenting that lecture were Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are already well known.
Oh, I would love to have met them.
Oh yeah, golden era with the paranormal research with the Warrens.
I want to, before you get any further, for people that are interested in Carl's story, there is a television episode on it. What is that for people that are listening?
Ghost Adventures?
No, about your story, about your growing up.
Oh, that, yeah. Well, I've been in a number of these television programs and shows, but there was one episode of The Haunted, actually a haunting, and it showcased my family story. showed me
very
a couple
cool.
of hours. And they had actors portraying my brother, sister, and I, and my parents. That was charming. And my mother, God rest her soul, she passed away a year ago.
Oh,
And she would say, "That woman looks nothing like me." I said, "Oh, contraire, Mom. She looks a lot like you. They cast somebody who looks like you." My father, not too much, some resemblance there. They tried.
What's the name of that episode?
The name of that episode is Dangerous Games, because it shows us, talking on the spirit board, and all kinds of things went kaflooey. Oh, my favorite scene in that episode, it shows me, I'm 16 years old, an actor portraying me. As my parents go out to their square dancing, and they say, "Now you guys behave, no horseplay." "All right, Dad." And then the narrator says, "But Carl has something more serious in mind." It shows
I've seen that episode. I have seen that episode. Aren't you like in the middle of your living room when you do the board as soon as your parents go? I have seen that so many times. That was you. That was you. What's on your freaking mind?
I told you I was a good-looking teenager.
You really were.
Yeah. And then they show us, older, discussing it. And but that was about 80% accurate. I really do like the way they handled that episode. It's just, to me, it was charming and funny and actually nostalgic. When they reenact that spirit appearing in the basement of my parents' house, spot on. That's my experience.
Great. That's good to hear, because sometimes that can be a little iffy, and that's nice to hear that.
We need to get Elise on here because she's helping me out from the side there. We just heard the IMDb for that, so you can find that stuff. Yep, you are there. So thank you for helping me out on that. Usually I have that stuff up in front of me.
You see, it facilitates. If something's not awesome, it makes it work.
She's the one I was chatting with earlier, right? When I sent the messages.
Yeah, that was
Elise, you're awesome. Hopefully we'll get to meet sometime.
Yeah.
Aw.
Gets a little embarrassed if we talk about it too much, but we're going to anyway.
What are you going to do about good partners.
About that
so then, how you each come from very interesting backgrounds.
Oh yeah, it seemed like the paranormal found us, didn't it? And even
and doesn't that usually seem to be the way? I mean, really. But there's paranormal, and then there's the extreme. And so, because even for me, as a medium, I didn't really. What you guys do and the evil and the darkness was not even brought to me until I had to be ready for it. And then once I was, or once they decided I was, my spirits, guides, and higher power, God, then things started happening, and I found myself in certain situations or having to enlist the help of other people and being involved in whatever. So how did you find yourselves dealing with this side of things? Because that really is the extreme side. It's also very controversial.
Well, our stories differ a little bit in that,
Yeah, his more prestigious, of course.
Experience is experience.
Prestigious, man. For people, I'll let Carl go first because it's hard to trumpet. So
I don't know, James. I heard your intro.
It's a very hairy experience.
Hey man, for people that don't know, and I'll throw this in for Carl.
Throw it in for me. Throw me a bone, whatever.
We got to remember, we talked about 40 years later, The Conjuring, the movie.
Conjuring.
Well, I have the man that was the very first investigator in that house in 1973. So it's hard to.
I was born in 73.
I wasn't.
You're the one that was born in 1973.
He was. I wasn't. Mike's older than me. I wasn't born yet.
Things were happening then. We were going to be straight.
Do we try?
Sorry, go ahead.
You were giving me this grand introduction so I can tell them
But in reality, though, like very first investigator with his brother and case manager Donna in the Conjuring house. Worked with the Warrens and lectured with them, which
yes, I did.
A lot of people say they have been able to do that. So he comes from a very heavy lineage. His brother is also a demonologist, and to me, of course, from my background, is they were the deciding factors of demonology for me. So, I would rather Carl start with this story first, because it basically makes my introduction and my story of why I got into demonology.
Segue.
Segues, yeah, definitely. Because
I think you just told my story.
No, I
actually.
didn't.
You sound like me and Mike.
So when I met the Warrens, he had audience participation. He asked certain questions of the audience. I raised my hand to key questions. So he said, "Come up here, young man." And I started speaking with the Warrens, and I did several times after that in colleges and lecture forums. And so then, of course, the lecture was actually organized and sponsored by a group based at Rhode Island College, PIRO, Parapsychological Investigatory and Research Organization. Had to give themselves a big title. And that was the paranormal group at Rhode Island College. And boy, after that talk, they swarmed around me and they invited me to join, and my brothers, of course. And so we became members of this group at Rhode Island College, PIRO. And we handled some exterior cases and not cases so much as investigations. And in fact, there was a church, the Chapel of the Good Shepherd on Brown Avenue in Johnston, Rhode Island. And that PIRO went by, parked in front of that church, were just getting out of their cars. I was not present for this. It was just before I joined. And they heard organ music playing. This chapel was a ruin at that point. It had burned. And they heard organ music coming from it. And it's just a vestige, like a foundation with some charred beams there now. But people say they hear organ music playing in that church. Again, it's a strange area. So we wanted to address some residential cases, help families with their haunted homes and explore those. To that purpose, my brother placed an ad in a local paper, the North County Observer, advertising PIRO, and saying, "We're here. We do not charge for our services. We will come and investigate your house upon your request." And 3 weeks to the day after my brother had that ad published, we were contacted by a Mrs. Perrin, Mrs. Carolyn Perrin from Harrisville, Rhode Island. She invited us to explore the strange happenings in her and her husband, Roger Perrin's home in Harrisville. We went there, and it did not disappoint. Very strange things that first visitation. Oh, not the least of which was a black form moving through the house. Not even a form, just a blackness, a darkness. Interestingly, many of the things we experienced as a team that first day when we went there in August of 1973, people are experiencing now when they visit the house, even if they hadn't heard the stories. And we were investigating, and this haunting seemed to be getting more severe. At no time did our team feel we were in over our heads. We were enjoying it. We were taking a scientific approach, documenting. And then one of our team suggested, how about if we contact Ed and Lorraine, with whom I was acquainted? Like maybe Ed and Lorraine, we could benefit from their vast experience and just consult them, see what they say. Well, to our surprise, Ed Warren invited, they actually offered, I was going to say invited themselves, which is kind of what happened. They offered to come to this house in Harrisville and explore with us. I said, wow, how neat. We're going to be investigating with the Warrens. And I remember being on the phone with Ed Warren with, a friendly conversation. I said, now, I understand we're going to be, conducting this investigation as a team, with you, with your cooperation. He said, oh, yes, absolutely. Would you like our case files? So I sent them right over. So I greeted Ed and Lorraine at the doorstep when they came there and helped guide that tour. Mrs. Perrin was showing us around the house. I was showing them around the house. Well, we wouldn't hear from the Perrins again for another 2 weeks. Just Mrs. Perrin, Carolyn Perrin, was calling me every day. And sometimes it was upwards of 10 times a day, telling me about the strange things happening in their house. And when we went back to the Perrin's house after a couple of weeks from our initial investigation, what a dramatic change in Mrs. Perrin. She looked like she hadn't eaten since we've seen her before. Mm-hmm. Young, attractive woman, but getting overly thin. Her husband, Roger, was awakening with scratches on his forearms, and things were happening there. James is trying to pull up the picture of me there. In later years, the Warrens would deny that anybody else was on the scene. They said they were the sole investigators there, but they be able to see that?
They should be able to, yeah.
Okay, if you can see that.
Just shared it. Yep.
It's a Polaroid picture, so the foreground is washed out. That's the lovely Miss Carolyn Perrin in the foreground, the brunette lady, and she's guiding the Warrens through the house. Visible in the picture are the elegant Lorraine Warren in the background. That's Lorraine, with her hand on her clavicle, which kind of meant she was receiving. This is taken in the basement of the Conjuring house, which looks, the house in Harrisville, Round Top Farm house, which looks very much the same. That air duct is still there, aluminum ducting. And on the side, by our perspective, the left side, that's 18-year-old Carl. That's me, with a blue shirt. And
look at that handsome guy.
Oh yeah, looking very very serious. And the charming lady next to me, that is Donna, who was then case manager of Pyro, and one of the founding members of Pyro, which I joined. So we're there investigating, and at first I thought, when I first saw that picture, somebody brought it to me. Actually, Elise found it, and I thought that was my brother Keith, because we're identical twins. Now look, I can see Donna has her arm around my waist, so that's me. That's Carl. I'm identified, and I really didn't know at first. And in later years, as I was saying, the Warrens denied that anybody else was there. They said they were the first investigators on the scene. That Mrs. Perrin called them in. No, it's not the way it really happened, and that's proof that. Plus, in Lorraine, my brother has a recording of Lorraine Warren acknowledging us, our presence there. So that's how the Warrens became involved. So that was my first residential case, talking about having the cherry off the cake. That was our first residential case, was the Conjuring house. But then, just a basic synopsis, we didn't hear from Carolyn Perrin for another couple of weeks. Even I didn't hear from her. She'd been calling me every day. We just assumed, as a team, that either they were really intensely into this case with the Warrens, that were helping them out, or it had been resolved that we wouldn't hear from them again. Well, 16 days later, Carolyn Perrin did call me. She apologized for having been out of touch, and she said that the Warrens had told them that they could be of no help unless they were the only paranormal people on the scene, the only paranormal investigators. We were just a bunch of college kids. We couldn't do any good. So that's how the Warrens commandeered that case. But I have no regrets over it. It was just, I wish I had taken more pictures and documented more. Things get lost over the years.
Sure.
And so I was hooked on paranormal investigation with that. And my second residential case or situation turned out to be a case of full-blown demonic possession, which transpired in Providence, Rhode Island. And it seemed like, as you would say, demonology found me. That was a hairy case. Things happened that were physically impossible, but they occurred. And it was successfully resolved. It had a happy ending to it, which not all of these situations will. And after a couple of more such cases, I found my name in print. Somebody said, "Carl, you're in a magazine here. Look at this." I forget which publication it was. I looked through it, and yes, it said Carl Johnson, the demonologist from Rhode Island. I had never heard that applied to me before. I said, demonologist? Oh, I like it. It has a ring to it. All right, I'll be a demonologist then. That's how I was first referred to, as a demonologist. And I was spoken about on at the time, a prestigious show. David Susskind had a show, talk show. Again, we're going back about 40 years, 35 and 40 years ago. And David Susskind was talking about me with the Warrens. So it's like, okay. It's not that I was gaining money from any of this, but I was getting notoriety. And so that's why I embarked on my career as a demonologist. Not always.
Sorry, I'm getting harassed in the chat room.
That's me. That's how I got into it. Always interested in these topics.
Yeah.
So once that happened, you actually felt the need to continue, because it really is a choice, right? So was it something you just knew you had to do, or do you feel like you didn't have a choice?
Well, I would say it kind of guided me towards this as an avocation. Paranormal groups, instead of saying, let's go on like a ghost hunt, it was more like, well, we can't handle this. We got to call in Carl. This is too dark and all this. Oh, thank you. Okay.
Well, that's good. They had confidence in you. Right?
That first case, that demonic possession case, I was, during the height of it, I was thinking, I don't belong here. Why are these people looking to me? I don't have answers for them. I just want to go home, go to my parents' refrigerator, and where I know the food. I just don't feel right being here. But another part of me kicked in, and I reasoned, if I leave now, I'm not going to be able to help these people. I'm not going to instill any confidence in them. And if I leave this situation, I don't think I'll ever be able to go back to it, because it's that element of the unexpected, not knowing what's going to happen hour to hour, minute to minute. If I leave now, I said, I won't dare to go back, because there might be another hairy situation. And as I said, what seemed to be impossible was happening here. The subject was a 14-year-old boy. He was going under fits of what seemed to be possession. At first, I thought it was, maybe he had a form of epilepsy, was manifesting as diverse multiple personality disorder. And no, there were leanings of the supernatural here. Of course, the psychological was prominent in this case, but the boy was in an age of transition, being 14 years of age. And well, when you see somebody flung out of their bedroom and across the wall through the air, and then spin around on the floor at a blurring speed, when you see religious pictures turn themselves upside down and a crucifix fly off the wall, hear the floor shake, so many things happen. My chair with me in it, when we did an expulsion, which is a minor form of exorcism, we were seated in a semicircle. I was a participant, of course. I had been called in to observe this boy because the people knew I had a reputation as somebody who would stand their ground in a hairy situation, and they knew I was a paranormal investigator. So the family with whom I was acquainted called me in. They were of Hispanic origin. I had actually lived in Puerto Rico for 4 months at this time when I was 20 years of age to observe paranormal rites in Santeria in the island. So that's how I got to know this family. And it was in Providence. And well, my first night there, I stayed overnight to observe. And they said he might go through one of his fits or something. We'll see. A little apprehensive, but I stayed the night. Okay, around 1 a.m, I was reclining on a sofa adjacent to this boy's bedroom, and I was just drifting off. All of a sudden, I heard a blood-curdling scream. It sounded like somebody was being flayed alive. I jumped off of that sofa and fumbled for the wall switch, turned on the light, the overhead light, just in time to see the boy's bedroom door, swing open on its own, and his body sailed out of that room, thrown out of the room, and was just spinning around on the floor, careening against the walls. Naturally, I stood there transfixed. I'd never seen anything like that.
Right.
So the boy did a backwards flip, like a gymnast, flipped backwards, landed on the sofa upon which I'd been reclining, and this deep guttural laughter came out of his throat. And I can describe it, but you'd have to have been there to really appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Then he suddenly, by this time, other family members had come into the room, and the boy looked at me with ferocity. Oh, I mean, my blood was cold in my veins. He just looked at me, and then he lurched and jumped at me. I caught him, in his mid-jump and held him to the ground. I was my normal 200 pounds, and this slender boy just pushed me right off. And then he came to his senses, but he was panic-stricken, crying for his uncle. I said, this has suddenly become very real. And we arranged an expulsion procedure for the next week, and some clergy was present, not a priest, but some clergy members were present. And we seated in a semicircle, had set up a makeshift altar, and holy water was upon the altar. The boy was seated, looking kind of nervous, to the left side of this altar. Okay, when it started, there were prayers offered, but when this procedure actually started, the floor, and this was down at the first floor, that what I just described transpired on the third floor. On the first floor, we're seated around in a semicircle the next week, and the floor shook. The house groaned. I might have thought it was a truck going by or an earth tremor, but it was neither of those. The house shook. Then it became eerily silent. And my chair, I was seated in the center of the semicircle. My chair with me in it slid back against the floor, all the way back. No, there weren't rollers on there, like that. Yeah. And then, what transpired during that next hour and a half? The boy fell to the floor, went through his gyrations. This invasive personality took over him. And I just stuck with it. I just wanted to leave. But what I did, and he turned to me and gave me that ferocious look and started to approach me. And what I did, I don't know where it came from, but I held up my hand and I said, "Stop." And he stopped. And I put my hands on his shoulders. At one point, I felt like I was being taken over. I felt this sudden onrush of hostility and fear all combined. What it was telling me to do, something was telling me to jump out of the window. Even, through the glass and all, even when we were on the first floor, it said, "Jump out that window." And I just concentrated on my own sense of self. It left me shaking. It's like, what is this feeling? And then it pulled out of me. I could feel the tingling in the back of my head. And at that moment, it seemed to go into a young lady in the next room, this spirit or whatever it was, this demon.
Right.
Instantly, she fell to the floor. As soon as it left me, she fell to the floor and started pulling her hair out. So it was a hairy situation. I cannot explain away the psychokinetic manifestations, things flying around the room. And it was successful. The boy seemed to be cured. I see the remedy as partly psychological, partly metaphysical, but whatever combination it was, he was better after that. So, and I was in touch with that family for a few years afterwards, so I know he was okay.
But
so
this is the night. Sorry, Carl.
No, I'm just saying that's what. Then I realized I was a demonologist, and then people were contacting me. It's like, this case that might be demonic. Call Carl.
But it's the 1970s. You don't have internet. How are you coming up with information, or where are your leads coming from to know what to do?
Speaking to people, garnering their experiences, taking a lot of notes, and going to the library physically and bookstores and researching as much as I could about demonic lore. And James and I define demonology as the systematic study of the lore and cultural tradition of wicked spirits. And that's basically what it is. And because it was the 1970s, I don't have pictures of this. I have eyewitness accounts, very few photographs. Don't have pictures of that situation. We took pictures and made recordings, but they've long since been lost or disintegrated. But my brother was there for all of it. Several people with whom I'm in touch were, and they remember that. But I don't know. I tried to look him up on Facebook. I don't know how the then boy is doing now. I assume he's all right. I found a blurb about him on Facebook, but I haven't communicated with him.
I hope so.
So were you meeting with different church leaders from various, denominations and such, or?
Did I then?
Yeah.
I am now, but not then. No, I had spoken to pastors about it back in the 1980s, and most of them were incredulous, just didn't believe, well, I know you experienced something, but they're not very interested in it. Others members of clergy and even psychological professionals they would look at me and like, you're telling me something true? But yeah, it was my experience at the time. But most clinical professionals will dismiss it as delusional or, something I think I remember or just want a good story. But I know it's true. I know I experienced all of that. And I know we all came through it. We might not have.
Well, that's the most important part, too. Is that there is, like you said, they don't always all end up with a happy ending.
No, they don't always. And I have situations that did not end well at all. This one did, fortunately. So the other cases followed, and some of them are equally as fascinating as that one. But I know we're limited to 2 hours tonight, so.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have you guys back on.
Oh, yeah, we'll give it a pleasure. But James had a very interesting ushering into the paranormal studies and demonology in particular. I don't know what you'd like to share about that.
Oh, it's short and sweet compared to yours, God. Basically, demonology didn't find me, to so to say. In reality, it was like it was a melding of the both. I found it, and it found me. Like, I knew of Carl, and I knew of what demonology was due to King James. Daemonology by King James is a tough read, but still one of my most favorite books to read. But working with Carl was a catalyst to making me go down the route of becoming a demonologist, studying demonology. But one thing that we haven't said is there is a difference between studying demonology and applying demonology. We're applied demonologists, so we take what we've studied through literature, through other people that have been involved with this, either as clergy or demonologists through the Judaic church, Judaic system, Christian churches, Hinduism. We take a lot of what we've studied, like we said, the traditions and lore of wicked spirits, and we take that and we apply it to the cases that we deal with. We see the characteristics of what is at hand. So basically, Carl and working with Carl was kind of the reason I got into demonology. But I would say the biggest trigger, because I could have just been a tech manager. I could have stayed doing regular paranormal investigating. But really what struck me is, even though I don't know what a ghost is, a spirit is, I cannot give you any empirical data to say this is what it is, but I've experienced it. I've known what I've experienced. I've been with people that have experienced it. Unless we were having a shared hallucination, we were experiencing something. We've collected data on these phenomena, these occurrences. So I was all right at that point in time of understanding that, especially getting involved with residentials. You know, first with my team Ghost with Andre Corrier, how I met Carl. I used to run Ghost Hunters of Supernatural Truth, aka Ghost, and basically started doing residential cases within that group. And one of the things I saw within doing residentials is, for some people, it was great to say, oh yeah, I'm not crazy. I am dealing with something. Okay, there is this and this and this that proves to a possibility that there is non-natural phenomena going on in this house. Things that cannot be explained. You know, did they check their flue pipes, their heating and air conditioning systems? Is there wood wrapping because checking all these certain things? Man. We would chat.
Wait, is Mike talking? No, Mike's not talking.
I'm not talking. No.
That's all the things that Mike, that's part of what he does with our team.
But
so that's very interesting to hear someone else get so in depth about that.
But so we so checking all that stuff. So and then you present something. I can't say it's conclusive. Like, I hate to say this is evidential. Like, I used to back in the day say this is evidential, but nowadays I can start to understand a lot of the natural phenomenon, like the magnetic poles, of course, right. the ionosphere with radio waves. There's a lot of things that we jump to the conclusion of being paranormal that are in fact not. But we're too closed-minded sometimes. So I started realizing that, even though it took me a long time to start understanding neuroscience and psychology a little bit more, even though I'm no specialist or doctor within those fields or scientist, but still, I came to a point in my life where, okay, I can start saying, here's this. But I was coming across people, like when I started working with Carl, that wanted help. I can't help those individuals beyond here. You're not crazy, or I didn't catch anything. So that really was the starting point. I would say the biggest key factor of it was when I found my faith and I started getting involved with ministry work. Through the Church of Christ. And that was when I was in the military. I was in the Army for a short period of time. And when I was away, of course, when I was in basic training in AIT, the first thing that most people understand, if you're not religious, go to basic training, church on Sundays, because it gets you away from cleaning the barracks for like an hour or so. And I'd rather so it's a mature motivation. So I would go to church.
Oh yeah.
And for weeks, I would just go to different churches. I would change every Sunday. Like I'd go to gospel church one day. Hell, I think I even went to like hit a Buddhist temple one time. Like I was just going to different churches just to get away from cleaning. But I went to Church of Christ one time, and this is the first time I had went to this church. And basically, I would have never. I'm a joking person. Back then, I was a lot more immature. Still, everybody has their immaturities, but I was pretty much immature, even though I was in the military. And I went to this service, and basically, something weird happened to me. And this is really what was a pivotal point in my life, but where I was not really religious. I went to the Church of Christ that Sunday, and the first thing they asked during the congregation was, who would like to get baptized today? And without even, this was not even funny, like, oh, I'm gonna get a dunk tank right now and get soaking wet. I'm gonna get a free shower or something like that. Like, without even thinking that, like, I raised my hand to get baptized. Like, I felt like this pressure, this relief on me that made me just raise my hand. And that day I got baptized at the Church of Christ. And that day I started reading the Bible every day. I started praying and doing certain things different in my life. And really was a different perspective. Really, basically what was the pivotal moment. Demonology and ministry work are kind of the same, but they do kind of help each other in so many ways. But that really was a pivotal moment in my life. It made me get into ministry work. It made me get into wanting to understand, like I said, got ordained to the Church of Christ as I was an active deliverance minister for them until I went to seminary through the Catholic Church. But you know, it was a pivotal moment. But I would say definitely, as the demonology realm, I would definitely say it was Carl. That was more the meat and potatoes of that. But it was a combination of so many different things.
Well, now looking,
For sure, though.
Does it seem to make sense to you that it happened in these echelons and the sequence?
Yeah, definitely. You know, like I tell people, like, as much as I was very depressed of getting out of the military, like I wanted to be a lifer. Like my grandfather was in 3 different branches. My step grandfather was a lieutenant colonel and still works for the DOD today. Like my grandmother, rest her soul, she was one of the first woman officers in the Navy. Like, so cool. It was a lineage that I felt like I failed. But within the first month of my unit going to deploy, they hit an IED. Like, I lost battle buddies over there. So a lot of things started to kind of come together. Like, I went in the military, became more mature. Didn't last more than a year, but I had that experience at the church. And then I lost people, because I was a truck driver. 11 Bravo and 88 Mike's, the infantry and truck drivers, are the 2 highest fatalities in the Army at that point in time. So it could have been me that died. So there was a lot of things that just opened up and made me start to realize maybe this is what I was like.
Oh, we're glad to have James.
So maybe this is
right. God works in mysterious ways.
Even
though
really
does.
Technology, I think it was a role that I was placed into. Like it was
absolutely.
It was like a mesh. It was a mixture.
Everything happens for a reason. You got to serve your country. Thank you for your service. And you get to serve the greater good and humanity on a much different and deeper level. Because there are true people out there.
Happened, to be honest with you.
You know what? I tell people all the time, my gifts are a double-edged sword. I totally understand that, because the things that we have to know sometimes we wish we didn't have to, but if we didn't, we couldn't help. So it's that yin and the yang, it balances each other out. On that note, we do need to take a short break, and we need to welcome in again. That's right. All of say thank you for welcoming us into your homes, and to give credit to everybody who needs it right now. So we will be right back.
Yep. So we're going to be a quick question before we go.
You always do this to me, dude.
No. It's really quick. Is it a small puppy or a small cat on the couch behind you? Somebody thought somebody thought they saw a dark shadow running behind, and I could tell.
That is my familiar chance. That is a cat.
Okay, so
I don't even see it.
Yeah, it keeps going back behind Carl there. So.
Yeah, he likes me.
So here,
over and all that.
Quick little message from our new location. You can now find us on Cutting Edge Television.
Was that the break?
You love doing that. You love it. Go.
And she got herself out of.
You're done. You're cut off. You're out of the family. That's it. Holy cripes.
I thought it was a little bit longer.
Forget you.
Yes. So yeah, folks, we are now on Cutting Edge TV on Roku. So you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, all the streaming services, and now on your TV. So sorry, Kristie, I thought it was a little longer.
My friend.
And Mr. Culls, another demonologist and one of my squad mentors, says hello and thank you for your service. So yeah, and there's the thank you on the cat.
Good night, Micah.
Yeah, I'll go grab him. I'm gonna go cat hunting. I'll be right back.
That's so funny. All right, so for all of you out there in new TV land who are not used to Mike and I yet, this is just the tip of the iceberg. But this is his new thing lately. He doesn't warn me with how long our advertisements are, and with this cold thing I have going on, he could cut a girl a break, but apparently he doesn't feel the need to. So, look how sweet.
Do you guys want to see a cat sacrifice on camera? I'm just kidding.
Oh,
Different channel.
Yeah. Different show. So I have a question. Now that we have your backgrounds, and now that actually, James, you've talked a little bit about, evidential, well, for me, it would be mediumship and evidential paranormal activity, things like that. You actually, in your description biography, actually say that you feel the need to legitimize demonology, and you do talk about using equipment and other ways of doing things and trying to prove and disprove, because that's just as important. Can you talk about that? Because when you say that, what do you mean? What does that mean to you? And what do you do to actually try to prove or legitimize the demonology?
Well, what do you think of when you say or hear demonology? It's, it sounds very, very supernatural, very fantastical. It doesn't sound real. Demonology, what do you guys do? Spells? Or you fight the demons? What do you guys do? Well, we lack the clinical nomenclature, like how do you systemize demonology? Well, we're making an effort to do that. Making it a legitimate study that others can pursue and learn from, because it is a viable and potent force in our world. Demons are real. They exist. I can quantify that. I can qualify that. It's hard to sit down and prove it on a drawing board, but they are real. We are unsure of their origins. My feeling is that the demonic forces proceed from the murky recesses of the human mind. We tend to think of demons as springing forth from subterranean caverns to prey upon the souls of the living and, try and ensnare we the living. But I think there's a more deep-rooted basis to it in our own psychologies and our own psyches. But that's what our mission is, to analyze it, talk about it. These forces are real. Either people are going to totally disbelieve them, or they're going to shrink from them and fear them. Oh no, I do. It's hopeless. We can't prevail against these forces. And other people will say, well, demons, if you want to believe them, then they're going to be real to you. I believe the truth lies somewhere in between those two extreme viewpoints. And it can be analyzed. It can be systemized. We make case studies. We document. And give me an hour with somebody presenting our evidence, I think I can give a pretty good case that demons are real, viable things. You know? And what seems to be a close cousin to the demon is a poltergeist. I mean, more people will believe, I think, in a poltergeist than they will in a demonic force. Because enough people have seen a poltergeist, and I have seen a poltergeist in action. It's scary.
Explain what a poltergeist is. Sorry, let me just interject.
Oh no, back up.
People who don't really understand or ever know. I mean, I know there's the movies out there, but what in your definition is a poltergeist?
And not a ghost turkey.
No, probably the same thing, guys. Poltergeist is German for rattling spirit or noisy ghost. Polter, to bang, and geist, ghost. Poltergeist. Okay. It has been observed since the Middle Ages, documented, and these are instances where some invisible force makes itself visible by flinging things around the room. Objects go flying, walls reverberate or are banged on, all kinds of kaflooey things happen, and it looks like an angry spirit, but it usually dissipates as soon as it came on. And the prevailing theory is that there's a human subject that generates this PK, psychokinetic activity, usually an adolescent. You know, they'll throw out these
psychic tantrums.
Yeah, psychic tantrums is a good way to put it.
That's a really good way to put it. I've never heard that before, but that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I define poltergeist as or I have defined a demon as a poltergeist with an attitude, you know, because it can be hard to tell the difference. I don't think people say that, oh, they're just a mental phenomena. No, it's not that simple. Because poltergeists have an agenda, they have attitudes, they have personalities, presences. Yeah. Poltergeists can have a voice. Poltergeist has been known to wrap bed sheets around and form human figures. I mean, there's an intelligence to that. I've seen them in action. I have no doubt the poltergeists are real. And it's screwy. It's alarming to see crockery and furniture move in front of you. Because, you know, no matter how long I've been at this, there's always that moment where I'm like, this can't be real, and it's happening. It's happening here.
Right.
And you know, I remember twice my chair with me in it moved back across the floor.
Do I have to demonstrate it again?
Yeah. How did that look like?
You're so good at that, James.
Well, an actor.
If you think about it, I mean, a lot of this comes down to our intentions, right? Our energy, even behind what we do or what we don't.
Well,
cleansing. You have to believe in what you do. You know, if you don't, it's not going to work. Exactly,
and it's analytic. You can dissect the poltergeist haunting. I was in a poltergeist case I was called into. What transpired in another Rhode Island case. This was in Coventry, Rhode Island, 13 years ago. And what did we have there? Why did this invasive spirit come into the house and wreak havoc? What's happening there? Well, both the parents, the homeowners, were raised in environments where they embraced the belief in spiritualism. One was from the Azores, in the Portuguese island. Another was from Guatemala. They're brought up with the belief that spirits communicate, you know, generally in that culture. The lady of the house, she and her sister, when they were in the islands, Cape Verde Islands, they owned 10 Ouija boards or spirit boards. 3 of them they burned, which you're not supposed to do. 7 of them they lost, you know, and they had 7 children in their house when I met them, and eventually it became 8. So you've got this battery of psychic energy being generated. They were, for the number of children they had, they were a fairly young couple in their early 30s, and they would quarrel, and then they'd have makeup reunions, and then they'd quarrel again. I mean, this place was a psychic battery. And I told the homeowners, I said, I'd be surprised if you didn't have something strange happening here. And boy, was it ever in that house. They called me, and while a team called me, and we were investigating. And the first night I was there, I directed 2 of the investigators, or advised them to walk around the house. People usually listen to the advice I gave. And I asked them to walk around the house and take readings. I said, stop and say a prayer every 10 feet or so. See if that does anything. Now walk around the outside of the house. Well, it's a pretty quiet evening at first, except we felt an eerie presence. Felt like we were being observed. These 2 ladies came back in. They're walking up the stairwell of the house in Coventry. and a sugar bowl from the kitchen flies across the room and hit a post over the stairwell. It must have been traveling about 20-something miles an hour, which inside a house, that's fast. It, boom, shattered. The girls had crockery shards in their hair. We all saw that. Nobody's in the kitchen. Bang, 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 again and again and again.
Wow.
And this family, you know, we talk about successful resolutions and all that. Well, not always resolved favorably. This family was actually driven from their home. Could not stay. They were driven out several nights. They were on the phone with me one night telling me what's happening. Well, more than one night. Called me up at 2:30 in the morning. I said, do it. I'll come over if you want. But they were driven. No, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. And the homeowner, Tony, we'll call him, he was on his way out. They just put some belongings into their car and went over to her sister's house. And he remembered his camera. He had a roll film camera he wanted to bring because he had some evidence on that, you know, to show that they weren't absolutely crazy. So he went out back in to get his camera. When he went back into the house, standing at the top of the stairwell was a figure, an appalling looking figure, something like a man looking down at him. And he had the presence of mind to snap a picture before he got out. I don't know if we can pull that up, possibly not.
Ooh.
I do have that picture.
Would love to see that picture. I'm sure everybody out there
It's
would too.
disturbing.
Let's see if I can get it.
If he gets it, I gotta just foretell you it's
Which will roll into basically why we do what, especially the legitimization of that.
Yeah.
Because we are trying to not necessarily disprove. We're not skeptical in a way. We
Right.
are, but we
Right.
are
healthy
trying.
dose of skepticism.
We are trying to prove the natural before we jump to the preternatural. So,
Right.
in every spectrum of ways, where we in legitimization, instead of jumping to the conclusion that you're dealing with a demon, or jumping to the conclusion of it being spiritual or metaphysical, we attempt not to do so because not everything is. You know.
Right.
So we try not to go in biased.
Yeah, 44% of people believe in ghosts in the United States. And of course, no statistic on personal examples.
Yeah.
I've dealt with 5 cases of demonic activity, 3 of them being possession. And this man in 47 years has only dealt with 5 cases of demonic activity.
So 5 and 5, not too much of a
So
wide margin.
Right. And it's not saying that it doesn't exist or it can't
no.
influence, that energy isn't influencing things. Don't you think too, kinetic energy, the magnetic pull of the earth, the energy that we as human beings give off, all of that and more, don't you think that spirits and you know, other energies can play off of that and use that to their advantage too? Not in a manipulative, conscious sort of way, but they do use that. I mean, I guess it would be conscious because they're using it. They
I
can
think so,
use
yeah.
that, right, to manifest and manipulate and do what they do. So I kind of feel like it always comes full circle in certain ways.
Yeah.
Don't
Because
you?
as a species, we are earth germs. You know, we are creatures of the earth, so we respond to our environment, in which we evolved. So we're going to be affected by the magnetic poles, the axis of the earth, all these factors coming in.
Right.
And we actually connected to the earth through an invisible line that goes through the center of the earth. It's all magnetic polarity. So yeah, any shift in those, you know, it's like a paradigm. Any shift in those polarities is going to affect us.
Right.
My own idea is that the dimensional planes, other realities, other universes, if you will, are plates, and they're projected as 3 dimensions. You get into quantum physics here. It's speculative. And sometimes they bisect. Sometimes these 2 planes bisect, and that's when we get freaky things happening. You could call that one of those planes the spirit world.
Right.
And it's so close to ours that sometimes they touch and we get crossovers, and the spirit beings see us and we see them, and I go, holy moly. So yeah, exactly what you're saying. Now, I believe, just to interrupt myself, James found that picture, and I've got to advise, it's not, just brace yourself. It's rather disturbing, but this is the photograph that Tony took. This is what he didn't know what would come out of anything, but he did capture the face of this thing. I think it's a demonic visage. It's the picture of a demon. So if you want to see it.
Yeah, and this is a rarity.
Very rare.
Most times we don't come across this stuff. There's only one time that in my cases that I've actually ever have seen a demonic visage, an apparitional force.
Yeah, I remember you telling me of that.
And that is actually an episode on my ghost story called Demon Shadow. I think it's episode 2. It's the last story. It was at Cumberland, Rhode Island, and his name is Willie, but it was on television. But that was an interesting. But as far as one of the creepiest things I've ever seen, this is definitely has to be.
Every once in a while, these things are spotted; they're witnessed. So James is going to try and pull that up.
Oh yeah.
But again, it's disturbing.
Going to the feed now.
Wow.
Yep. Wow. As you look at it, you can really.
It is undeniable.
It is not an illusion. It is not the background.
It's not Matrix thing or pareidolia.
It's definitely not pareidolia.
You can even see the hook and the tongue. How the tongue.
You can see the bifid tongue. Like a human tongue would be, except it's elongated. Everything is distorted.
Yeah, the tip of it
just is open like
elongated.
Like a boa constrictor would unhinge its
Yeah.
throat. You can see dentition. You can see what look like molars of teeth. It's got a
nice.
horrible, leering, ferocious smile. The nostrils are shriveled and arched, and the eyes are just malevolent, looking into the face of hell here. What is that thing? But that's what came out in this picture. I mean, I don't know what to make of it, but it's what he captured and didn't know what would come out. That's what drove them out of their house.
Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing.
I thought
get to see things like that very often.
Audience might be interested in that.
Wow.
I would definitely be leaving. I the glass of water probably would have got me to leave the first house, but
Right?
That's water ain't
That's right. That's right. You can say it. Go ahead. Mike's got us covered.
Yeah. I think Keith just said it right there. So go ahead, Keith.
And one of the things too that incorporates legitimacy of what we deal with. We work with psychotherapists and therapists and psychologists and other physicians and doctors. And some of the things that we've come across, of course, that photo wasn't captured by Carl, but Carl was involved in that case, experienced a lot of things. And of course, even dealing with possessed individuals, as Carl stated in his Providence story, the things that we see, the triangulation of the face, the cheekbones popping out, eyes going black.
These are what we assume are possessed cases.
Definitely.
People undergoing possession, demonic possession.
Yeah, and it's very frightening. It takes you back. And seeing something like that, imagine dealing with that. Imagine seeing that.
So you're doing the research. You're going back. You said you got the background in some of the other religions. How far back have you gone back? Have you gone back to look at Sumerian text, Greek text, Roman text, anything that would show or describe that information of what you're looking at?
Answer is yes. You want to?
Yeah,
Hinduism.
We both have. I'm very. Even though I'm Christian, Catholic, but I'm very, very in love with Eastern religions, and Eastern religions are some of the oldest religions. Hinduism being 4,400 years old, it's the oldest modern day religion. So as far as religious texts and being Mesopotamian, Sumerian, we had both had extensive backgrounds and research within those confines. I've even one of my cases dealing with a demonically possessed individual that was in a state of transient possession. I had to deal with a professor out of Rhode Island because of we actually captured the language we thought to be Sumerian and
had similarities to Sumerian.
And we had to get feedback on that. So I know I have extensive research, more so in the Eastern religions, but I do also have backgrounds in Mesopotamia, Judaism. Judaic folklore is interesting with golems and all that.
That's
stuff.
Fascinating,
But
the Kabbalah studies.
Yeah, the Kabbalistic magic. But my thing would be Eastern religions, and I also love, like I said, Greek mythology and ancient Egyptian, which are very influential, especially Greek and Egyptian belief systems on Western culture.
and you're catching a description of what, like from my background, the Bigfoot thing, we look at facial structure and all that. Are you seeing that when you look at a picture like that? Does that particular face shape come up with each of those cultural backgrounds?
You mean likening it to the creature that we call Bigfoot?
Yes. Yeah. No. I'm going to take Bigfoot out of it. Just that. You're doing a lineup of evil things. Do they? Japan has this. India has this. UK has. But the preceding cultures, have you seen in religious texts that you've done research on into the demonic stuff? Are they describing the same thing?
Yeah, what they seem to be describing are what look like desiccated corpses. You've got they're all symbolic of death or representative of death.
Right.
The bulging tongue, the popping eyes, or very sunken eyes, basically skull-like. They look like a dissolving corpse. And I think that's very symbolic. I think it's rooted in our subconscious. That's what we consider evil spirits to look like. And we're talking about what's widely regarded as the cradle of modern civilization. Well, modern, I don't know, the civilization in ancient Sumer, the Mesopotamian area. And you had names that resonate now, like Ahriman and Ahura Mazda. And Ahriman opposed Ahura Mazda, the creative force. Pazuzu, yeah, he factors in the god of pestilence and plague. Demigod. And then you've got the Hebrews, the ancient Hebrews, who are nomadic mercantile bands wandering through desert lands. And they have traffic with what became the Persians, but the ancient Mesopotamians. And then they synthesize this faith. They blend together. And the Hebrews, even though they were not called such at the time, they are influenced by what they found in Mesopotamia. And these two faiths blend, and you have God. You have the god El. El. That was God's name at first. And, it was when we probe backwards. And God had a wife. Yeah. Ashura was God's wife. And you've got this interesting amalgamation of beliefs. And from it springs Judaism. And from that begets Christianity. Yeah. So we have a fascinating heritage, and we're talking about a 3,500 year span. Seems like a long time. It is, but that's when these world religions were first crystallized. That's not that long ago. It's not. When these religions actually had were cemented, and it makes you speculate and wonder what was happening on this planet and in these regions that we speak of 5,000 years ago. Was there that great flood? Did God come down and speak with people and appear to people? You have the remnants of these beliefs in early biblical stories. And who knows what the reality behind them was. It's so obscured now. But something happened. Something big was happening 5 millennia ago in these regions, in the southern Asian areas.
And to get to, I think, the key point of characteristics of these beings that go to the longevity of human culture like that is we got to remember that demonic entities are non-corporeal beings. They don't have a physical body. So they are representations of what is demeaning to the person or what is relevant to the situation at point. Sometimes they will appear to what is known by common pop culture because that's a way of representation. But these are non-corporeal entities. They don't have a physical body. They're not like Kristie, Mike, Carl, myself. They don't have the same features. They don't have the same features. They're all different. They're spiritual beings. That's why a demonic entity is known in pop culture to be like, of course, Satan, the devil has the pitchfork and the tail and the horns, and you see these demons in the movies like Hellboy, he has those are all
in Occidental
those are all interpretations.
We do have a basic idea of what demon looks like. It's anthropomorphic, and maybe they do matrix our forms, and that's how they appear, draw upon what we have, what we imprint. But you get an idea of a demon. It's got some animal attributes. It's basically human form, but looking very malevolent.
When it appears.
Yeah, when it appears. Oh, I've seen some horrific, and well, that photograph is evidence of it.
Yeah.
And some horrific reports of how demons appear when people do see them.
Now,
Pretty.
James, you being the technology guy and a tech guy, do you have something that you quantify and use to measure energies or other items in the area when you're into an investigation besides, the usual 4 senses and such?
Well, I'll check the heating systems. I'll check the venting systems, especially if it's a furnace. Well, I have a tech background, but my secular job is I'm actually a foreman for one of the largest HVAC companies on the East Coast. So I have a very extensive construction background as well. So in many means,
even better.
as far as investigating, I understand. Yeah, and I know some people are going to hate me, but EMF devices used in the paranormal situation, they're not meant to be at a constant because of magnetic poles, static electricity, which happens due to temperature change. So me stepping into my room changes the temperature because I'm automatically this temperature at all points in time. I'm coming into a 65-degree room. It's going to change. Static electricity is going to happen.
In an observable fashion, too.
EMF devices are great in a location that outside electricity, if your circuit breaker is shut down. But even if all that's shut down in the house and you have an EMF detector or a K2, there's still to be false positives because guess what? The magnetic poles, hell, even with spirit boxes, with EVPs, more so spirit boxes, but the ionosphere, it bounces back radio waves back to you. So when you're communicating is synchronicity, like you're just getting the right thing at the right time kind of moment. So I do use those tools in some form of fashion as indicators, but I also don't take them like saying this is the holy grail that because I just got 100 milligauss at this wall or I went red that there's a spirit here. I use those as collectives, but I tend to more so, of course, with what I do, relate to the individual, what they're dealing with. If religious iconography is tipping upside down and stuff like there's no way to, beside observing that or recording that on video camera, to prove that to people. It's not like an EMF detector will detect that. So, but yeah, no, like I try to use all the boxes possible and check them off before I jump to a preternatural case because, work in construction, I know what black mold can do. Hell, I can't disclose about hospital, but I'm doing a hospital remodel right now. And I run multi-million-dollar jobs, run huge crews for my company. But I was doing demolition work for this old section. Imagine this is a hospital. There is cake batter dust in the supply system, not even the return system. Cake batter dust in the supply system. That takes a lot to do. That takes a lot of not changing the filter. But even that dust creates mold because guess what? Metal condensates. It creates mold. So, like even that, you're breathing that in.
It's going to distort your senses.
It can create hallucination.
It's hallucinogenic in that sense.
And people don't realize, even if, and this is where the brain comes into play. If you are an individual that lives in that homestead over and over again, and you're dealing with this stuff, and a person that is never been there comes inside as an investigator and is there to experience what this person's experiencing. Their hallucination could become a shared hallucination just by power of suggestion and a little bit of course, what's occurring there and natural. If it's mold, if it's CO by flue pipes being pitch strong,
so much
to consider. So yeah, definitely. I specifically, I know Carl does too, but I specifically, especially with my construction background, and hell, like you said, my tech background, I went to school for computer networking. I went to college for computer programming. So I look at a whole spectrum of things.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I mean, going in with thermal detectors and figuring out where that ductwork is, or figuring out where the electric line's going. You know,
back 3 centuries, what did you have transpiring in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692?
Yeah.
People were convicted and condemned to the gallows on spectral evidence.
Right.
And what was happening there? The ergot in the bread, creating hallucinogenic compounds, which are, ingested. And you got these people actually, to them, it was real. These subjects in the trials, that these children are seeing things, and they create their own battery, and it becomes real, and then they're recanted afterwards. So, what about your famous cat? Remember the cat case where did you want to share that?
Oh, so
that fits right into what we're saying.
Talking about natural occurrences. So Carl and I, this is a case that, one of the cases that will always live down in infamy for me.
The case that went down in infamy.
Was he capes when you say that? There you go.
But seriously, so talking about natural occurrences and hallucinations and breathing in things that you're not meant to breathe in.
True stories are always the best.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they wanted to be paranormal so much. But
the case.
Carl and I were, like I said, a part of the team, and the founder of the team received a call from, was it Connecticut?
Yeah, Eastern Connecticut.
Eastern Connecticut, where they were experiencing all this phenomenon.
Enfield, I think it was.
I think it was Enfield, actually. But so we had taken the call. I was going out there to assist. I was the tech manager, set up their equipment, whichever.
This gets amusing, believe me.
But we didn't even get that far, mind you. We were there for, I think, no more than an hour until we started unraveling some things. Unfortunately, we found out the hard way. But what had happened is when we were starting the interview process, because we always sit down with the client before we start going over everything. We want to know the gritty detail.
Gritty details.
Gritty detail. Gritty nitty.
Right, now you're sounding like Mike. Talk about influential energy.
I'm just kidding. We do a multi-interview process. Our multi-interview process is, of course, like an email interview, a phone interview, then an in-person interview, because you can see stories change within that process, and you really want people that are going to be legitimate to you and truthful and honest and can stay and to the merit of their story. So we're at that point where Carl and the founder of that team are going over questions with these people. Mind you, we're sitting on their furniture, sitting on their seat. We're checking out the location. And they have one door closed out of all the other doors. And they say, oh, yeah, we really don't want to go in that room. Me, of course, I'm young and brash. They're talking to clients. I go in. I have a door right here, mind you. The door's opening. I open the
James is individual.
I open the door, and I'm like, there's freaking 10 cats in the room. But before we get to the 10 cats, we walked into that house and we were like, what is that smell? We're like, oh, that is pungent. That is disgusting. It's so penetrating of the nostrils. It's acidic. And we're trying to figure out what it was. It's everywhere. It's on the couches.
Pervasive,
it's everywhere. And when I came across the 10 cats,
I would say acrid is a good
word. I don't know who put it together, but then I think it was the founder of the group that we were with, kind of put it together that we were sitting on cat piss, ammonia. We were smelling it.
No, that's awful.
Imagine all our stuff is all of this basically. And we had figured out the reasoning to why they were dealing with things, because not only did they have 10 cats they were peeing everywhere, they were breathing all that ammonia in. They were having experiences that were not natural. They weren't reality.
Now, why didn't we think it was, cat piss when we first came in? Because you're combining this accumulated cat urine, which is basically ammonia, with upholstery, and you got this, this brew, stink, And it's like, what is unearthly? It's gonna be demonic. What is it?
Smell is a dictator, as you guys know, indicator.
Right.
He's been hanging out with me too much. Yep.
Of spirits, and demonic being sulfur or something wretched and decrepit. And
it certainly seemed unearthly.
It seemed unearthly until 10 cats.
Yeah, 10 cats.
That's definitely
There was more cats than I've ever seen in a house than I ever wanted to.
Were they hoarders? Were they hoarders too?
It wasn't that dirty beside the cat piss.
No, but it's more like if they got spiritual problems or demonic influence, that's the least of their problems. Now,
right.
Fumigated first.
But yeah, definitely. And sometimes we come across that stuff, and we can't negate the fact that they might be dealing with paranormal phenomena.
Right.
But is that generated after their consciousness wanting it to occur and be there because of what they're dealing with? So that's always a possibility of a spectrum as well. Like, not to steal too much from Carl's time, but too late for that, dude. In another case, I wish I still had the video, but with all the line with the cat piss story.
Fall right into the cat piss story.
So I have a question though, because we are starting to run short on time. And so I'm just curious because doing this work, and I ask this a lot of people who really are into just the technology side, forget people who are gifted openly or are able to acknowledge it already. So in doing all this work for each of you, and you can decide who goes first, that's fine. Have you developed or learned to grow into and or acknowledge gifts of your own that do help and aid in this process? Because let's face it, that's important, right?
Yeah.
On that side of things.
We can call it intuition, experience, whatever, all combined. But yeah, I don't think you can be involved in serious paranormal investigation processes without developing some kind of sense for things. Early time, I remember that is like what we cited earlier, the Perrins house in Round Top Farm in Harrisville, Rhode Island. And 40 years later is the subject of a major motion picture called The Conjuring, titled The Conjuring. I remember when we first pulled up to that driveway in August 1973, I said, oh, something's up here. Because I'm in like spooky looking settings and don't feel this. Now I do. And and that's when it kind of started. I do. That's how we have that basic, I don't know if I'd call it a gift, but the ability of discernment where you kind of know we're dealing with something heavy and inhuman, where you get that feeling. It's subjective. It's hard to analyze and describe. But yeah, you get that. I can sense when a spirit is coming to the room, spirit being a very blanket term, when some presence has entered a room.
Sure.
You do. And it's hard to nail it and say just when that ability starts and kicks in. But yeah, I think we do.
Yeah, I agree too. That you can't say anything more than that. I think through a process of longevity of dealing with this, your body just becomes accustomed to things.
Very good. I have another question. It's kind of random. Sorry, Mike, you're gonna have to wait. Not random. It still pertains.
Somebody's
to what
feeling
healthy. You know what? But I find that there's mixed opinion about this, which I'm just curious myself, having to use it myself. Holy water. So I've had some people say, as a Catholic Christian, I grew up, you had to have the whole thing blessed, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is, but the priest or whoever has to bless it. But I've also had people tell me you could take this blessed holy water, pour it into another bottle of water, and just a drop, and all of a sudden it's blessed and it's holy and it's ready to go. So what are your opinions on that?
Like food coloring.
I wouldn't say that's the case, but I guess it's really dependent on the person you talk to. I think one of the things that people should do less of when it comes to their beliefs is push less of it on other people. So I've always looked at holy water of those things as positive tools, and if for that person, if they think that works, then if it works, great. I'm not going to shit on it and say it doesn't, because if anything's possible. Even the word impossible has possible in it. So
that's a good way to put it.
It comes down to the intention of the person.
I would prefer to, as a clergy member myself, I would of course bless individual scents. Like I would bless a new bottle of water, or a new gallon of water, or a new aspect of water. I wouldn't drop my old holy water in a new bottle and say it's holy.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just very curious. I agree. I agree with your thought process and opinion. That's the belief that rings true for me. But I know that there are others who believe just as strongly that it's possible to transfer it. And again, it comes down to your intention, right? And what feels right.
The theological sense, especially when clergy members, lay of hands, when a bishop does that, it's the transference of the Holy Spirit, and that is when you receive minor orders, and then when you become clergy, you receive major orders.
Then you are authorized to bless water.
You're authorized to bless it, but the blessing is done through the transference. So it's not done through the transference of the element. It's through the transference of the Holy Spirit to the individual, the catalyst, or the construct of the intent of why it's being blessed. So usually some people can say, and I have to do it to help people because they were in a bad state, but technically even people that say they can bless holy water over like Zoom or StreamYard like this,
I'm a little dubious about that.
Dubious, but I can't lie and say I haven't done it once or twice to help people because they were so severely
they needed it at the time.
Absolutely.
If I wanted a stock of holy water and I needed it quickly, what I would do, if I had the materials, I would take some H2O and I would put some myrrh into it, sprinkle a little dust myrrh and salt. No, I wouldn't do Gatorade. I put maybe Gatorade. And I would put a little salt into it, and I would bring it to James to bless because I know he'd be sincere. I know the man, so yeah, that's what I would do.
Well, they're really soft.
With the crazy
a water bottle right now, right here on television.
Hang on, where's my little thing here? So with this crazy alignment with the planets this week, have you guys seen an increase in crazy energies and stuff?
Well, with the alignment there with Saturn and Jupiter.
Yep, and then the solstice last.
Yeah. Well, that was the Star of Bethlehem. They think there was some kind of a conjunction like that.
Yeah, that was wasn't it?
In 4 BC, and perhaps Well, it's still ongoing. I just every time I look up, there's clouds. Maybe see a little half moon, crescent moon last week.
Yeah, there's nothing happening.
I'm waiting to look up and see it because Saturn's been very visible this year in the sky and the firmament, and Jupiter has been prominent since the summer. So I'd like to see them getting together. How long? Some people say 400 years, but maybe longer.
So what? Since that happened?
Yeah. How often?
Right.
I'm not.
There's usually something going on in the sky, celestial phenomena. But
Okay, so real quick then, we have to, sorry, because I want to get this in for you before we have to say goodbye and close.
Yep.
Because now we have to be on time. We can't go over.
She's never on time, so we're good.
You know what? You're cruising. Santa's watching, my friend.
I'm getting cool. I got something to forge with.
So you guys have written some books, so we wanted to put that out there and make sure you're able to tell us a little bit.
He's written a book.
Okay, so and I hear that there's something out of this world in the works, right?
Yeah, we're trying to jot notes about our own work, collaboration on demonology, of course. And this, if you hold it up, thank you, Jay. I'm too modest to really hold it up like that. No, that is my book written with Lana Jan Brock, who is an accredited theologian, and that is Shadow Realms Demonology Handbook, intended just like the title sounds. It's something you can bring with you to a paranormal investigation. There are 3 authors.
You're a fantastic man, James.
It is basically a series of essays with pictures in the middle. And thank you. And it has case histories and speculation and all that. It's of course not the definitive work on demonology, if there is such a thing, but other sources have contributed to this. It's my personal take, mine and Alana's personal take on demonology. It's a hand. It doesn't ever claim to be, the answer all, but it's a good reference, I think. But
I think when it comes down to paranormal and supernatural in general, I think it's all based on our own experiences and our own journeys. So there's never going to be one. We may have similarities and we may have things we can all kind of count on or work from, a basis, if you will. But I think it's never, ever supposed to be the be all and end all, because it's never going to be that way for everyone. It's not standard precautions, standard procedure, right?
Right. No, the standards change as we learn more anyway. Right. You want to talk about a diversity of topics here. We've got, what is this? I was a teenage Satanist. Okay. That's a good one.
You was.
Yes. Well, I've seen the other side, have I not? Beware Those Dolls, parts 1 and 2. Yeah.
Oh, Mike loves dolls.
Nope.
Oh, he's got to read this chapter. It talks about how spooky the mannequins can be.
You keep your Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls wherever you want.
Yeah, you heard about that. I delve into that. Yeah.
Oh, no. We had 2 in the house as a kid. They were pushed to the attic on purpose.
Yeah.
But yeah,
poor Nikki.
He does have a great book out. We will, of course, we tease it, but our approach to writing a book would be something of academia based. We are trying to legitimize demonology. Like we do earnestly mean that. So like our next point would be, of course, getting something out there that academics can respect, and that, of course, other people within the want to learn demonology and be incorporated with an applied sense of it can use that book as some sort of stepping tool into getting involved. Handbook, Shadow Realms Demonology Handbook's a great book. Rosemary Ellen Guiley's Encyclopedia of Demons and Demonology is a great book. Michelle Bellinger's Dictionary of Demonology. There's so many great books, compendiums out there, but we're definitely going to do something sometime in the future.
Yeah, it's a collaborative effort.
Writing a book's not easy.
Elise contribute to that?
She will. And
that's great.
We also, of course, for people that are interested in either reading Carl's book or hearing us basically come together without writing a book, is we have our own weekly podcast. Well, we try to make it weekly.
Well, with the holiday season gets a little interrupted here.
And I put the link to your website in the chats on all. I will also put it in the bottom comment section on YouTube. Yeah. You definitely can find them there. Your contacts there. It's a nice little website, easy to go through and find out more about you guys.
Demonology.org.
Yeah. This has subjects, and I'm just noticing some of these chapter titles. Chapter 3, Dark Explorations. Now that's gotta be.
So do you have any other major event coming up? We got about 3 minutes left, and then we
talk about so demonology.org is the best way to reach us. We have our podcast coming back the 6th of January. We have a special guest, Lloyd Auerbach, predominant role in parapsychology. Our topic is parapsychology, but as far as of an event, because of COVID, we've had minimal of those, but our next big event is March 27th?
March 27th, Saturday.
In Gardner, Massachusetts, at the S.K. Pierce House.
Also known as the Victorian Mansion.
Haunted Victorian Mansion in Gardner, Massachusetts. And we have 6 tickets left, and that's for $65 a piece.
Bargain at that price.
Yeah, definitely.
We're running it.
And it's very intimate, and you get to investigate with us and hear us lecture. And at any event we do, we as much as people love it or hate it, we actually we experiment. We try new experiments that haven't been done before and see if they work.
We're innovative, yes. Hey, chapter 33. What if it doesn't? Chapter 33 is called "What If It Doesn't Leave."
Wow.
And then
calling in a new demonologist.
Up Close and Personal with a Demon, Part 1. Chapter 35, Up Close and Personal with a Demon, Part 2. Oh my word.
Oh, the boss is watching.
Mike's chapter of the way those dolls that he should read.
Well, you guys, it has been truly a great time having you, and very enlightening and very informative. And I think everybody out there would agree.
Enjoy it.
And we appreciate the laughs. I know I do, for sure, because I learned something and I enjoyed myself at the same time. So you guys are a pair. I love you.
Oh, excellent host you both are. We'd like your guest in your house, and we've enjoyed it. We hope you'll have us back on.
We'd love to have you.
Time next year. I hope you'll have us on within a couple of months. Please do bring the enchanting Elise in with us.
Yes. I think we should. I think we owe her own show at this point.
She can do it.
Aww, that's wonderful.
So now what we say at the end of the show, where's my sage?
I thought you were going to sing that. To you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and a very happy and safe and healthy new year. And yes, hopefully we will be able to talk with you and get together with you guys again sooner rather than later.
You hear that energy level? That used to be me. One guy was like that. And then he became subdued.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Happy Kwanzaa. Love you all.
Yes, right back at you. Thank you, Carl and James.
Thanks,
have a wonderful night.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Take care, guys.
Great show, folks. Happy holidays.
There's something, aren't they? This was great.
So, unfortunately, or fortunately, we have to come to the end of our hour. We're on a new thing. So please check us out if you've got one of the new smart TVs, Cutting Edge TV, or you can listen to us at our favorite podcast location, Spreaker, Spotify, the whole bang, iTunes and everything. So
thank you all. We hope you stay safe, stay healthy, please. Be very mindful of yourselves and others around you, okay? And just have a wonderful Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, every happy holidays out there. Mike's like, shut the hell up. We got to get off.
We got to get off.
All right. So in the meantime, everyone, stay safe and sample on.